but not sexy Gary Oldman Dracula, like decrepit old Gary Oldman Dracula.
It was actually kind of a shady purchase.
He
So
made the Statue of Liberty disappear, and he made himself disappear from that transaction.
Branson giving Epstein tips on how to improve his public image.
What does Oprah have to do with this?
Today on Feral America, what would you do if you had unlimited money, total power, and a proclivity for ignoring financial and penal laws? If you're a certain kind of man, you buy an island. Not because you love the ocean, but because on an island, you make the rules. You are the economy, and you are the law. Obviously, everyone knows about Jeffrey Epstein and Little St. James. Well, before we go any further, I need you to hold on to this image in your head. Oprah Winfrey on a beautiful Caribbean island, filming a soft, glowing interview with a man who was under FBI investigation for rape on the island where the alleged assault happened. Just another day in feral America. I'm Stevie.
I'm M.
And this is Feral America.
So, Stevie, what does Oprah have to do with this?
I'm so glad you asked. Let's roll the clip.
This is a beautiful life, but it comes with a price, meaning people are out to get you. I'm reluctant to bring it up, but only bringing it up for all the people who would say, you didn't ask him about a woman who claimed that she was assaulted here. In 2007, a woman claimed David Copperfield lured her to his island and sexually assaulted her. He says those were his darkest days, but he never missed a single performance. 3 years after her accusations against David, the woman was charged in another case with making a false statement to a public servant. Ultimately, all criminal and civil suits against David were dropped. People remember the charge,
right.
They don't remember the exoneration.
Exactly. Not only exoneration,
yeah,
but I was the victim.
Yes.
Big difference.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, so that's what Oprah has to do with it. She's not involved in any of this or anything, but she did travel to Copperfield Island after he was under investigation by the FBI and did a nice little fluff piece on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really fluffy. What stands out is that he said he's exonerated, but was because all charges were dropped, etc. But, money can exonerate you, right? So I wish we knew whether he had reached some sort of settlement with the alleged victim.
Well,
That'd be
what's
good to know.
interesting is that the case was actually dropped because it was out of the U.S. jurisdiction. The woman who brought the case filed it in Seattle, where she was from and where she had met Copperfield, but because the crime took place in the Bahamas and not under U.S. jurisdiction, that's why it was dropped. But in that same interview with Oprah, he talks about how the woman who brought this charge was also, he says, well, she was convicted of lying, which was a separate case 3 years later and had nothing to do with the case, but he made it really sound like it had to do with his case. So today we're going to be taking a look at some billionaires' islands. And so we're going to start with Copperfield Key, which is in the Bahamas, and it was purchased for $55 million by Copperfield. And it was actually kind of a shady purchase. So he wanted to buy this one particular island. He ended up buying a chain of 11 islands. But he wanted to buy this before he bought any of these islands. He really wanted to buy the main island. And the person who owned it was the co-founder of Blockbuster. And he didn't really want to sell it to Copperfield because he thought he was kind of sketchy and didn't think he would manage it well. So he told Copperfield no. So what Copperfield did was go and create a shell company and made sure that his name was not attached to it at all, and had the shell company purchase the island. So it was a
Interesting.
little illusion, believe it or
Mm-hmm.
not, from
Mm-hmm.
Copperfield.
Mm-hmm. He
So
made the
he,
Statue of Liberty disappear, and he made himself disappear from that transaction, right?
yes, and as Oprah said, throughout all of this, he never missed a show during
What a
his Vegas
guy.
performances. I know, so hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, I should point out that it has just come out uh, in like I think in the last week or two that he's actually canceling his Vegas performances. He's no longer going to be performing in Vegas because of his ties to Epstein and the outcry from it.
Well, a couple of really damaging photos of him jumping into Ghislaine Maxwell's arms wearing a terry robe, and she's also in a terry robe. I mean, that's pretty damaging. So I'm not surprised to hear that now this hardworking guy is canceling his Vegas residency or whatever.
Exactly. And what's interesting too is during his Vegas time, he was accused by 16 different women of
Mm-hmm.
either sexual assault or groping, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And over half of them were under the age of 18 when that occurred. One of the girls was 15 when she met him, and he really took a liking to her. They met after one of his shows. And he ended up grooming her for 2 years. He would send her gifts. He sent her a 16th birthday present, which was like a teddy bear or something, along with a note that said, "I'll be back in 2 years for you," which he kept to. And when she was 18, he met up with her and she gave her virginity to him.
Mm.
Uh,
So he's
but
creepy. He's creepy.
he is definitely creepy, and he has happened to evade any actual convictions or anything like that. But there have been a lot of separate people, like we've seen with Trump, for example, where there's people that have no connection to each other that have very, very similar stories and seem to have gone through similar things. And just like Epstein, Copperfield used his island to bring at least the one woman from Seattle there.
Mm-hmm.
With her, it was a promise of modeling. He said, "Oh, I'm going to bring you to the island. We'll do some shoots and this,"
Mm-hmm.
and then she was trapped there.
Yeah. There's a lot of modeling that's interwoven into a lot of these billionaires with these islands. So
Right.
we'll
This
talk about that more.
modeling and pageants
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a way for these creepy guys to get into, the circle of these beautiful girls and young women,
Access.
and have
Access. Yep.
exactly, it gives them access. Just a reminder that Trump had pageants. He had teen pageants, and the girls talked about him walking in on them while they were changing, and he bragged about it on Howard Stern.
Tasha Dixon says that she and other Miss USA contestants were changing into their bikinis for the swimsuit portion of the contest when suddenly Donald Trump appeared unannounced. Her story sure sounds like the one Trump bragged about on Howard Stern's radio show in 2005.
And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
Even more troubling, Trump also allegedly walked into the dressing room at the Miss Teen USA contest in 1997. Mariah Bellotto, who was Miss Vermont Teen USA, says Trump told the startled contestants, "Don't worry, ladies, I've seen it all before."
Yeah, I saw that clip years ago, and I had read about it as well. And was I surprised? No, because growing up in New York, you kind of know a lot of things other people don't about him.
There just seems to be so many similarities between these people and kind of how they act. One thing I noticed in that Copperfield interview with Oprah was him using the Darvo strategy, which is deny, attack, reverse victim and offender.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said, he's like, I'm the victim.
Mm-hmm.
And
3 years after her accusations against David, the woman was charged in another case with making a false statement to a public servant. She pled guilty to obstructing a police officer. Ultimately, all criminal and civil suits against David were dropped.
Now, to be falsely accused of something that horrendous is a devastating thing for yourself, your friends, your family, really bad. When the truth comes out, that she was arrested, finally things, come to light. I'm working on forgiveness about this one, but I definitely pray for her.
so putting the victim, the one who was sexually assaulted, as the offender, a liar, and painting himself, the sexual assaulter, as the victim because I guess because she filed in the wrong jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's some other modeling connections that we're going to get into very quickly here. Here is David Copperfield, which is Musha Key is the name of
Mm-hmm.
his island and his set of islands.
Musha Key is for rent. You can rent it out. I think it's like $57,000 a night. It's like
A night. And
11
only one,
islands, 40 beaches, a drive-in theater, your own speedboat. It's
and
like crazy.
only a 4 night minimum. So if you have an
Mm-hmm.
extra 300K sitting around,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to go rent out the island, you can do that. It's only
Mm-hmm.
one party at a time that gets to rent it.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to pay extra if you want the fireworks. That's $25,000 extra. Or if you want to do the 3 hour um, treasure hunt, that's an extra 20,000. So, I mean, if you're already kicking in 300K, what's an extra 20, right?
I think it would be very telling to see who in the future actually rents from David Copperfield. Now that everyone knows his association with the Epstein files, I would think it would be people who just don't care. And that's very telling.
Right.
So,
One last little island I wanted to mention here is the island, Necker Island, owned by Richard Branson, which it's only a 20-minute helicopter ride from Little St. James, or a 10-minute flight. So we know that Epstein actually did visit um, Necker Island. We know that because it showed up in the Epstein files. So let me share really quickly what Branson's email was to Epstein after Epstein had visited Branson's Island. All right, let's see. Stop sharing that one. I feel like I'm teaching on Zoom again. All right. So, dear Jeffrey, it was really nice seeing you yesterday. The boys in water sports can't stop speaking about it. Anytime you're in the area, would love to see you, as long as you bring your harem. So that was an interesting
mm-hmm.
little note there that he says, as long as you bring your harem. And
Yeah.
then moving on to the body of the message is basically Branson giving Epstein tips on how to improve his public image. Number one, here's the big one. It says, I think if Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor to him, that you slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old woman, which, okay, first of all, 17-and-a-half-year-old is not a woman. That's still a girl. And the
Mm-hmm.
girl that he slept with was 14, not 17 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Branson has not been accused of anything in relation to, underage girls or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought this was interesting that he's trying to help Epstein clean up his image a little bit.
Yeah, gross. It's gross.
So speaking of billionaires with modeling ties and islands, let's watch this little clip first, see if you can figure out who it's talking about, and then we'll go over to M to look into it a little bit more.
Is going to be complex because we have an international trafficking ring with its focus from New York City, from which it emanated, with tentacles all over the world, with hundreds of people that enabled, helped, and knew about this scheme.
With allegations of rape and sexual assault by more than 80 women in over 4 decades from several different countries, and now with an arrest for sex trafficking. How did it stay a secret for so long?
People who are impoverished, people who are looking for opportunities. Initially, they were invited to a party. Here are young people, young girls, who for the most part have never been in that kind of environment. So they're vulnerable, very vulnerable. They're impressed with the opulence of the place, and then they fall victim.
He knew how to buy people. He bought out politicians.
The young girls and women felt, I had no choice. It's a tragic story.
There were whispers and rumors about sexual misconduct, a dropped rape charge in 1980, sexual harassment of his employees in the 1990s. His wealth and power would take him so much farther in his second home.
I've seen on numerous occasions females come, they are told that they're going to be the next top model, and it's nothing. After he already sexually abused them, he takes them and he forgets them just as quick as they come, it's as quick as they go.
Rachette Ross began working as Nygard's massage therapist in 2009.
Well, as time went on, I realized it wasn't really a job. It was a giant whorehouse.
Ross said she didn't like what she saw at Nygard's parties, but felt she had no choice but to go along.
I was the only breadwinner in my home, and I had 6 dependents. In the Bahamas, no job is going to pay me what Nygard is paying me to do what I do.
Nygard told me that the reason why Jesus is so popular is because he had a good PR team.
So Peter Nygard.
Yeah, so when you look at a clip like that, you see the similarities to Epstein, right? Like in the first maybe 45 seconds of it, you think it's about Epstein. So these guys have similar MOs. So here's some background on Peter Nygard. He's Canadian, lived mostly in Winnipeg. He went to college in North Dakota. He entered the fashion world in 1967. He became like the polyester king of fashion.
Right,
And,
wasn't his target market like middle-aged ladies?
Yeah, old ladies, polyester, the stuff you find like at Dillard's in the women's section. I mean, we're not talking about high-end like Gucci, Versace type stuff. We're talking about old lady polyester stuff. And as a result, a lot of real designers made fun of him over the years, and that kind of really got to him. So it's like he built he built an ego, like, to deflect all the attacks from the other designers who are actually talented designers, right? Because nothing that he's ever designed reflects any kind of talent. And you can see from the clip, he's not a handsome guy. He's got like the long blonde hair. He's got kind of like this Siegfried and Roy thing going on, and the spray tan or whatever it is.
The Fabio wannabe.
Yeah, and he's very flamboyant. And he got more and more flamboyant the older he got. Except as he got older, that whole look turned more into like the Gary Oldman Dracula look, but not sexy Gary Oldman Dracula, like decrepit old Gary Oldman Dracula. But he expanded from Canada to the US, and he opened a flagship store in Times Square, which is kind of a big deal. And that was when Times Square was trying to like rebrand. Being a New Yorker, you know that Times Square went through a period where it was like yucky, and it was trying to like rebrand itself. And so he kind of capitalized on that and opened a huge flagship store there. And he bought Nygard Cay in 1984. And it's part of Lyford Cay. So it's not its own separate island like Little St. James. It's part of a larger key that is gated and very, very private. So, I mean, he had neighbors and things, but he built like a 4-acre complex on this thing. And he had like Mayan reconstructions of like Mayan temples with like sacrificial tables at the top and all kinds of like crazy stuff on his key. And he abused women there for decades.
Start spreading your legs.
Nassau Airport was 10 minutes away from his key. He'd bring them there. He'd take their passport, take their wallet.
This was not a seduction gone wrong. I was yelling, screaming for him to stop.
I tried to get out of that room, but I was locked with a deadbolt. I was trapped.
They'd have no way to get out of there, and he would grape them repeatedly.
We can use the real word on here.
Can I use the real word on here?
We can use the real word. We can swear. We can do whatever we want here.
He fathered 10 children. A lot of the mothers were his victims. And it's like he had the audacity to take them all on a family trip at some cabin somewhere that he owned every year. Like it's like this is normal. It's almost like these guys
Trafficking family
start,
reunion.
Yeah, they start believing there's normalcy in all of it. And it's like that's almost the most disturbing part. Like as we see from the Epstein files, it's like they're talking about hideous, disgusting acts, cruel acts. Like it's normal, right?
So was Nygard mostly flying in his victims, or did he find local people too?
He found local people too. He'd hire them, but then do other things with them, right?
With blue eyes is what I call him. He asked me if I was interested in modeling for him. When we first arrived at his estate, I ended up inside his bedroom. I was 14 years old at the time.
Because it's a poor community that of locals that rely on these very wealthy people who live on Lyford Cay for support. So it was both. It was both.
And then he had these pamper parties too to kind of like bring in some of the sexiest locals.
Yeah, exactly. Come have your nails done and get have a spa day. He portrayed it as like giving back to the community when it was just a lure to get women onto the property and then they couldn't get off his property.
Ply him with alcohol and food and
exactly.
Tell his bartenders which ones to roofie and take it from there.
The pamper party was something set up to lure girls in for Mr. Nygard to have sex with them.
Nygard would just come down and choose a girl. Usually they would be drunk. He would be grabbing them, dancing with them, and then at the end of the night he would give me this signal, and that meant stop filming, and he would go upstairs to the room, sometimes with 2 or 3 or more girls.
So another thing I want to point out about Peter Nygard is he was friends with Robin Leach. Robin Leach did some interviews with him and PR pieces for him.
Peter Nygard is an extraordinary man, and if ever there was a candidate a true candidate and a correct candidate for Lifestyles of Rich and Famous, I would say that it would be Peter Nygard.
And we know what Robin Leach is alleged to have done, right, in the Epstein files, including
We'll put that up here too.
Yeah, hurting kids and worse, right, and worse. Mm-hmm. And he was also friendly with the former Prince Andrew and his wife Fergie. Prince Andrew visited Nygard to celebrate his 40th birthday. And Fergie brought her little children to visit with Nygard on Nygard Cay. So it makes you kind of like, it makes me like want to vomit in my mouth a little bit, you know?
Right? Who
like,
brings their kids to these pedophile islands and like resorts? Like,
right. And it wasn't a one-off for her because she was also emailing with Fergie, emailing back and forth with Epstein about various things. Like she was in it, in the thick of it. You know, you can't separate her out. You can keep talking about Prince Andrew all you want because he actually physically participated, but it's not like, it doesn't seem, let's not get sued, doesn't seem like Fergie was not complicit in whatever Andrew was doing, right?
right. It seems like another one of these women who are enabling this behavior, whether
Right.
it's like actively enabling it, like Leslie Groff did, you know, with Epstein, or, you know, looking the other way and, you know, my husband's just off to another island with pedophiles again. I'm sure he's not doing anything improper.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So he was kind of like, Nygard was wash, rinse, repeat with women until 2020, when some victims contacted the FBI, and Nygard's next door neighbor on Lyford Cay, a financial exec named Louis Bacon, came across with some information that he had been provided by Nygard's former photographer. And that actually resulted in charges being brought against him in the United States.
Southern District in New York. They do all the good work.
Mm-hmm. And the next day, literally the next day, he resigned as head of Nygard International, and the company filed for bankruptcy because he really was the company, right? So they filed for bankruptcy. And then about a year later, charges were filed in Canada. They actually tried him for several counts of sexual assault and put him away for 11 years. So he's actually in jail right now. Whereas the United States still has not tried him.
Elbows up, Canada.
Right, yeah, Canada, good job. Got to rely on other countries because it doesn't seem like we're going to do it here.
No.
He's marked for extradition eventually to come here and be tried. Do I think that's ever going to happen? No, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But at least we know he's in jail in Canada.
If he served, like, he's old now. What is it, like 83 or something?
Yeah, I think he's 83, 84. He's got like maybe like another, another 5 years or so, 6 years maybe.
If he survives that long, then maybe we can extradite him and charge him here in the U.S. for anything else so that he can just spend the rest of his decrepit Dracula life in prison.
I think that's a fitting ending, that he die in prison. Another
note to any of those entrepreneurial pedophiles and creeps out there, maybe don't name your company your name, so that if you do get caught, your company can still go on without, you.
Well, I think he really wanted to be a real fashion house. Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, Peter Nygard. It was just never going to get there because he has no taste and the clothing's awful. So I'm guessing that was part of it. Ego. He has a huge ego, which you can see from the flamboyance, right? But his ego is so huge that social media creators were creating memes of him, and he was serving them with cease and desist letters. I know, poor baby. His feelings got hurt. So,
Aw.
yeah, that's Peter Nygard.
Well, it seems like the common thread or threads are an excess of money, people who are hoarding money, narcissism, malignant narcissism, and a propensity for young ladies. That seems to be the perfect storm of the ultimate creep factor.
One other thing that stood out to me about Nygard is he was doing all these like stem cell treatments to try and reverse aging, stave off death and dying. And Epstein, right, was trying to do something similar with like baby farming to like propagate and whatever. So there seems to be like the narcissism and the egos are so huge that, you know, continuing forever on the earth plane seems to be like such a paramount concern to these men. It's really unbelievable.
Right, that they think that they're so unique and special that the entire population should be of their DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which again goes back to the narcissism and the, which is it's beyond that. It's like a hyper ego kind of thing. Yeah, and Nygard, like Epstein, Nygard didn't just abuse on his island. He did in his home, in his home territory as well. One of his victims was, again, brought to his factory because she was going to be doing some modeling, and he led her into a room and locked her in there for 3 days. And she was able to get to a phone and call his nephew because she knew his nephew, and he was able to kind of come and rescue her from there. So, again, I think his things like Epstein spanned decades, like 4 decades for Nygard, I believe it was.
The earliest allegation was 1968. Yeah.
Maybe we can start believing survivors. It's ridiculous that these things go on for this long, that these people are allowed to continue, that people know about it, and it still goes on.
You know, one more point to make about these men. It's like, so my background, my legal background was mostly in finance, right? So what I learned over many decades of working with that clientele is that money does not change you. It doesn't change who you are. It makes you more of what you already have been.
It's
so
like
if you're
alcohol.
like a kind, generous person, having money makes you so much more generous. If you're a greedy pig, having money makes you more greedy and more of a pig. And if you're a narcissist, having money makes you even more narcissistic. So if you look at old clips of Epstein, right from when he was even teaching at Dalton School, he's rife with narcissism. Nygard, in his very early years in the 60s, clips of him that are online, the narcissism is palpable. It's like they were already that kind of person, and the money just gave them the ability to just do whatever they needed to do to serve their narcissistic tendencies.
Exactly. I used to be a wealth manager, so I worked with a lot of people like that as well. And we called it the Lucky Sperm Club because most of the people, they didn't create their own lives. I think Nygard was different from that. Like he grew up very poor and kind of
Mm-hmm.
actually did create his own
Mm-hmm.
empire. But, people like Trump that are, gifted millions from their
Right.
family have done nothing to earn it. And then just
Exactly.
squander it away. Um, a really interesting read on Trump's finances and that his financial history is Lucky Loser. Um, it really details like all of the different bankruptcies, all of the
Mm-hmm.
ups and downs of money and kind of why certain business ventures launched,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
The Apprentice and things like that. So I don't know. I feel like the old adage of follow the money really seems to play in here. But I think you're right. Like looking, it does seem like money is very similar to alcohol in that way, and that it will enhance your natural tendencies, whether that's for good or bad. And like with alcohol, it seems like the more that someone has, like the kind of worse it gets. It's interesting. My parents live in Washington State, and in Washington State, they don't have an income tax, one of the few states that doesn't, and they just passed um, a millionaire's tax, so that people who make more than 1 million each year are getting an income tax. And the next day, Howard Schultz of Starbucks announced that he's moving from Washington State to Florida. So it just, a lot of times these uber wealthy people, they promote their charitable giving and their
Mm-hmm.
philanthropy, but they need to do that for tax purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we
Exactly.
want to really look at is, are they paying their fair share in taxes, and what are they
Mm-hmm.
doing with their excess money?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know, like for example, Jeff
Buying
Bezos
islands.
right, exactly. Jeff Bezos's ex-wife is, she got a pretty penny in the settlement, and she is basically giving it all away.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing it all very like not publicly. She's not like,
Mm-hmm.
publicly out giving her stuff away, but she is giving it away. And to me, that stuff just shows like, again, the true character, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I have extra money, I go out and, buy a coffee for my friends or this or that, that's the kind of extra money I have,
Mm-hmm.
coffee money, not island money. What would what would you buy if you had an extra $1 billion?
Me personally,
Yeah.
well, it wouldn't be an island. I'm very content with just, you know, some nice things, a safe place to live. I like I don't have an extravagant home. I'm like really content with it. It's like pretty. Um, I donate a lot of time. I probably donate a lot of money. You know, I'm actually generous to a fault. Don't tell anyone though, because I don't want any requests.
Right? I know. And I think about the same things. I'm like, I don't think
I'm
about
getting
like
old. I
what,
need it now. I got to keep it.
right? I think about like what would I spend my if I had, extra money, what would I spend it on? And for me, it would be like services, like somebody to clean my house, or do things like that so that I would have more time to go and volunteer and
Mm-hmm.
give of myself. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would like take care of the people that I love in my life and make sure that they're all set for life. But beyond that, you know, I would be given to charities.
Um, for me, it would be kids and animals. I'm kind of over adults for the most part. Adults killed it for me. So like anything to help kids and animals. That's probably where I'd put the money. So
Let us know in the comments if you guys had an extra $1 billion, what would you do with it? Would you buy an island? Would you help kids and animals? What would you do? Well, here we are again, just trying to solve the world's problems. Just another day in feral America. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. I'm Stevie.
I'm Em. Have a great day.